Yeah, yeah, I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good too. It's finally great to meet you. What? How do we pronounce your name? What's your name exactly?
My name is Sai
Sai. Well, it's very nice to meet you, Sai. I'm Yusuf. Sergio.
Yusuf.
Yeah, I'm Sergio Yusuf. People call me Yusuf normally. Yeah.
Yusuf. So, Yusuf, thank you for accepting my invitation and accepting to be on my show.
No, thank you for having me here. This is wonderful. I've seen your videos. So like when you messaged me on Twitter, I was like, let me check this guy out. Let me see what videos he makes. And then I saw your videos and the fact that you know, call people from all walks of life from all over the world and just have a conversation with him. This is an amazing idea. Like I'm really excited to be part of this, great endeavor of yours. The fact that I can be part of your videos, sharing the same stage with so many other great people who you've contacted is just it's an honor. So thank you for having me. So I believe we have some internet, some
Yeah, we
connectivity.
got connected.
Yeah, okay, okay. Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yeah.
All right. Is there some problem? Like, am I coming clear to you?
Yeah, I can see you. I can hear you.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Cool. All right then. So yeah, again, as I was saying, like, thank you so much for having me on the show. I just wanted to know, like, how did you come up with this idea?
So, I'm an engineer. I did
Okay,
master's in software engineering. So I thought,
okay,
other than what we studied, we have to do something which
right,
is useful and which will be inspiring and which will send world a positive message and tell everybody that we all are same.
right. No, I love this message. I love this idea, and I'm just extremely glad that I can be part of it.
It's my pleasure you
Yeah,
accepting my invitation and being on my show.
yeah. So how do you find your participants? How do you find your guests? You reach out to them on Twitter?
I put mails directly. I'll put mails to the companies and I'll put mails to the authors and Facebook, Twitter, everywhere. Whenever I see their profile interesting, and
Right,
if I understand that I know what they have studied, I want to know
right,
what they have studied and which
right,
subject they know. And some people studied marine biology. Marine biology
right,
is not my subject, but
right.
after talking with them, I will know. Like that, coming to NASA, who works in
Uh-huh.
NASA about astronaut.
Right,
He will be talking about the space and
right,
the everything related like that. Different people talks about different things. It's
right.
that makes me feel that I have studied nothing.
No, no. There's just so much in the world to study, right? Like everybody's got their section or niche of knowledge, and I think that's why I'm really excited to be on your show because I believe that your show connects all of those different pieces of information and puts it on a global level. So again, it's an amazing thing that what you're doing.
So I want to introduce you to my audience.
Right.
So can you please introduce yourself to my audience?
Sure, of course, I would love to. So, hey guys, my name is Sarjeel Yusuf, and basically I'm a product manager at Atlassian. Sai, do you know Atlassian? Do you know Jira, Confluence? Have you heard of these tools before?
No.
No. So, all right. So Atlassian basically makes tools for software development teams to help software development teams, uh, you know, in their development endeavors, right? And I basically work as a product manager in one of the tools in Atlassian called Opsgenie, right? Now, what Opsgenie is, it basically helps a company manage incidents. So, what is an incident? An incident is, let's say you're using an app, right? Let's say you're using, Netflix, right? So, Netflix is a huge software, giant, right? And they have so many services and they have so many technological parts working together, right? But just like any machine, one part can break, right? And what my company does, or what the company that I work in does, is that it helps you understand what part broke, right? So what happens that when you have a huge technology or a huge software system like Netflix, let's say, where you have so many moving parts, you're constantly getting alerts and notifications about each part in the software system and how that is operating. When a small part of that system breaks, then that alert comes to Opsgenie. What Opsgenie does, it collects all the alerts and it finds out who that alert should go to, because companies like Netflix and uh, eBay and Flipkart in India. I know there's Flipkart in India. A lot of these companies, right? They have so many engineers, so many developers. So who is the right person to fix the problem, right? If you don't know who is the right person to fix the problem, then it can take very long to fix the problem. So imagine you go to Netflix and you see that Netflix is down, something is not working in Netflix. For the people in Netflix, it's very crucial for them to fix this problem as soon as possible so that they can get back and running for their customers. So what Opsgenie does is, again, it keeps on consolidating all the alerts that it's getting from the system, and it finds, okay, that this is the problem, and it finds the right person who should know that there's a problem, so that person can then fix the problem as soon as possible. Yeah. So that's exactly what Opsgenie does. So it's an alert consolidation tool that helps with incident management. That's the way you can best define what we do. And what I am doing is I am a product manager at Atlassian. So what product managers do is that we think of the next features to build or the next improvements to build in a product. For example, WhatsApp. So, Sai, do you use WhatsApp?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure you use WhatsApp, right? Everybody uses WhatsApp. So in WhatsApp there's that record button. You can record your voice, right?
Yeah.
So that was an idea of a product manager once upon a time. So he thought, okay, you know what? Our customers should be able to record their voice. And then what that product manager does is that he thinks of the best way to execute that plan. Okay, we know that customers should be able to record their voice. Now, how do we design it? He works with the designers. They get the designs. Then the product managers go to the engineers and he says, okay, this is the design. Now we need to build it. How do we build it? And then he sets a time. He sets, in some companies they even set budgets and all the resources basically. So a product manager basically thinks and envisions what the product will look like, and then he gets all the resources. He communicates his idea to all the people in the company, and then he manages to get the resources and makes sure that his idea becomes a new feature or a new product in the company. So that's what product managers do. So I'm a product manager, and what I am focused on is this concept called DevOps. I don't know,
Okay.
Sai, if you've heard of DevOps.
Yeah, I heard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So what I'm doing is I am trying to help our DevOps customers in their DevOps practices through incident management. So again, Opsgenie is an incident management tool. Some new customers are coming which try to practice DevOps. And so what I'm trying to see is like, okay, if you are practicing DevOps, what do you need? Oh, this is what you need. Okay, this is what we will build in Opsgenie. So that is my
Okay.
job and role. Yeah. So yeah, like for anybody who is unaware of DevOps, DevOps is actually the new concept or a new trend in software development of how to build software faster. Okay, so I know you're a technical guy, and I know you've studied, as you said, you studied computer engineering. So like basically what happens is that in these big companies, the developers are always developing new code, right?
Yeah.
They're always building something new. But when you keep on developing, as you keep on going faster and faster and faster, sometimes you can break something, right? So what DevOps aims to do is that it helps teams to develop faster, but also maintain the stability in the system, right? So that is what DevOps is, and that is the new field that the industry is moving towards, and that is what we are trying to, achieve in Atlassian, in Opsgenie, and that's what I'm personally trying to achieve as a product manager.
So you are a product manager.
Yes, I'm a product manager. I was first a developer actually. I was a developer in Atlassian, and then I switched over to product management.
Okay. So I understood your job, and you can you tell me more about DevOps?
Sure, I can tell you more about DevOps. So DevOps is, as I said, it's a very upcoming field, and sometimes it's really a very misunderstood field, right? So the whole point of DevOps is for developers and operations people to come together and work together. So before, what used to happen was that developers used to program and build something, and then they would push the code into production, and then it was the job of the operations or SRE. We used to traditionally we call them SRE engineers. What the SRE engineers have to do is they have to make sure that that code that they've pushed into production is stable and the system does not crash. There are no bugs, no errors. You know, I'm basically explaining all of this in very general terms, right? So there's this whole development pipeline. So like, first the product manager comes up with an idea. Designers design that idea. The engineers program that idea. Then when they program the new code, it needs to get tested. After it gets tested, it needs to get built and pushed into production. When it gets pushed into production, then you have to monitor. You have to keep on seeing, okay, this new code, is there something wrong with it? You monitor. And if there's something that goes wrong in it, that it means that there's an incident. So then you have to fix what went wrong. So you push something new. If it breaks the code, you have to fix it. When you fix it, then you give a feedback to the start of the pipeline again, to the start, maybe to the product manager and the engineering manager, that look, this is what broke. This is how we fixed it, and in the future, this is how we'll need to uh, make sure that when we develop new pieces of code, nothing breaks. So the whole DevOps pipeline, what DevOps plans to do is like, we talked about so ideation, development, testing, monitoring, incident management, feedback. What DevOps plans to do is it tries to bring all of these different silos, we call them silos, together. Okay, so that this is the thing. Like, imagine you code something. Okay, you're a programmer, you code something and you send it to production. You start the website. Okay, I am the SRE person, I'm the operations person, and I have to maintain the website, make sure that the website doesn't break. If something goes wrong, usually what used to happen traditionally was that when something went wrong, I had to identify what went wrong. But I'm not the one who wrote the code. You wrote the code, right? So then I have to first find out who wrote the code or what went wrong, and all of that took time. So that means the more time I spend in trying to fix the problem, the longer the disruption is for the customer. The customer is looking at this server down or this error, let's say, for a longer time, which is bad, right? Imagine you're a company and you don't want your customers to see that your server is down or your website is not working properly, right? So what DevOps aims to do is that it wants to try to make the operations people get closer to the development people, and it wants to make the development people get closer to the operation people. So before, in DevOps, there used to be this, there's this folklore, there's this story, or this concept. We call it the wall of confusion. The wall of confusion is this barrier that sits between the developers and the operations. So, you're a developer and I'm an operations person. In between us, there's this wall. It's like a curtain or a wall. I do not know what you're doing and you don't know what I'm doing. But we're working in the same company and I am receiving the code that you are giving me. And because there's this wall, I don't know how that code really runs. I don't know how the tests perform. I do not know if all the edge cases are completed, covered. And what happens then is that when an incident happens, because of that wall of confusion, we see that, there's chaos. I have to try to fix it, but I do not know how the code works. So I have to try to understand, Sai, you're in a team of like 20 developers. I need to find out which developer was the person who would fix the code, then we have to come together. So what DevOps tries to do is it tries to break down that wall of confusion so that the developer and the operations person is the same person. Now, what does that mean? That means that, okay, if the same person is going to handle everything, if he's going to handle development, if he's going to handle testing, if he's going to handle monitoring, if he's going to handle incident management, it's too much for one person to handle everything, right? So DevOps is built on certain principles which promotes automation, communication, and collaboration, right? The automation part is that automation becomes like, for example, let's say you write your code, that code automatically gets tested, it automatically gets pushed to production, and monitoring automatically happens. And in some cases, even if there is an incident, you automatically manage to detect what went wrong and execute something called runbooks. to resolve that incident. Now what happens here is that automation basically allows, this automation basically allows us to go faster, but it also allows us to maintain stability, because like one person simply cannot handle everything. So that's where automation comes into play to help us, to help that one person who's now responsible for everything focus on the business code, right? If a developer is always fixing what is broken, then he can't build new things. He doesn't have enough time to build new things. Automation, monitoring, and all of these other concepts in DevOps helps that developer or that DevOps practitioner, let's say, focus on the business logic while ensuring that stability is maintained, right? So this is a very general and broad overview of DevOps. DevOps, a lot of people think that DevOps is a certification, it's a tool, it's a job position, but in reality, that's not true. That's not true. What DevOps is, and there's a gentleman, his name is Jez Humble. He writes the best. He defines DevOps in the best way possible. He says that DevOps is a philosophy, it's a culture, it's a set of tools, all of this incorporated into the way we work and the way we develop software, right? And I believe that is actually what DevOps is, and that's what we at Atlassian are trying to do. We aren't building a DevOps tool; we are building a DevOps. We are incorporating DevOps practices into our existing tool sets, right? We don't, as a DevOps product manager, I'm not going to say that this tool is the silver bullet for anybody who wants to practice DevOps. No, what this tool is, what the new features that we build in terms of DevOps are features that enable DevOps teams to reach where they want to be. Okay. And the question is, how do you measure the success of DevOps in your company or in your team? Well, Google has, Google in collaboration with Dora reports, they come out with this great metrics of how to measure the success of DevOps. And there are 4 primary metrics that I like to look at. One is called lead time. So there's lead time, there's MTTR, there's deployment frequency, there's change failure rate, and another 5th new metric that is now coming out, which is called availability. So let's go over them. Lead time is basically measures your velocity in terms of your code development. It's how fast can you go from, your coding, when you're pushing out code to production, right? So from the time, usually it's measured like from the time you create a pull request. The pull request is basically you've created your code. Now you want it to go into the main code, into the main database, into the production database. So you create something called a pull request to merge it to your master branch. So from the time of creating your pull request to going to production, that is lead time. So how fast are you sending your code to your customers? Basically, that's what we're trying to measure. MTTR is called mean time to resolve, or mean time to resolution. And it's basically measures the time from when an incident occurs to the time that the incident has been resolved. So how fast are you fixing the things that break in your system? That is MTTR. Deployment frequency is how many deployments. What are deployments? Deployments are basically code that you're sending to production or sending to any environment in your system. You're basically the set of changes that you're sending to your system. So how many times are you changing your system? Basically, that is what deployment frequency is, right? And change failure rate measures the amount of changes that you're making in your system. How many times, like if I make 5 changes in my system and 4 of them break, that means I have a very high change failure rate. That means whenever I'm making a change, I'm always breaking something, or most of the time breaking something. So it's, for a company, it's very important to have low change failure rate, because that means a low change failure rate basically means that when I'm making a lot of changes, I'm not breaking my system, right? And then finally, the 5th metric, which is a relatively new metric compared to the other metrics, is called availability. Availability is the time, the uptime that you have promised to your customers. So like, for example, Facebook, right? Facebook's when you go to Facebook, you 24/7, you always expect Facebook to be working, right? But if it is not working for 1 hour, so it reduces your availability. So availability can basically be measured by the uptime promised to your customers minus the downtime experience divided by the uptime promised to your customer. That is a very basic formula, let's say, of availability. So these are the 5 metrics that you use to measure how successful you are in your DevOps practices. So you want a high lead time. A high lead time means that you are sorry, you want a short cycle time. My bad. Sorry, you want a short cycle time because short cycle time means that you're pushing your code to production very fast. You want a low MTTR value. That is because MTTR measures the time that it takes you to fix a problem. So if you have a small MTTR, that means you're fixing the problems very quickly. You want a high deployment frequency because you want to keep on making changes, and changes should be coming fast. So you should be being able to deploy very fast. And you want a lower change failure rate, which, as I explained, a low change failure rate means that the more you're making a lot of changes, but you're not breaking a lot of things. And of course, you want a high availability. A high availability, like 99.999% of the time, whenever you log on to Facebook, it will be there. 0.00001% of the time, it will not be working, maybe, right? So the higher the availability, the better the status of your system is. So this is in a very broad way in a very general way what DevOps is. Then in smaller, you can also go more specific into the specifics of DevOps, like so debugging, cycle, CI/CD, which is your continuous integration, continuous development, incident management, testing, automated testing, monitoring, observability. A lot of this is also there. Yeah. So I know sometimes it's, for somebody who is hearing about DevOps for the first time, I know sometimes it can feel very intimidating because DevOps is very big. So, if this is the first time you're hearing about DevOps or what DevOps is, what I tell everybody is like, don't feel intimidated. There's a lot of resources out there for you to learn about. My company, Atlassian, is one of those companies that is, pushing to educate the community about what DevOps is and what the best DevOps practices are. So you can always go to atlassian.com and find out more about DevOps over there. Yeah.
So, what is the difference between a cloud architect and a DevOps engineer?
Okay. So a DevOps engineer is basically his job or his role. Well, okay. Now this is what I mean. Like, as I said in the beginning, sometimes DevOps is a very vague or obscure topic because it's so big. So when you say that, oh, I'm a DevOps engineer, it can mean many things. So let us first define what a cloud architect is. Now, what is the cloud? So the cloud is a new trend of building, or the new way of building software. Before the cloud, what used to happen was that everything, when you build your software, when you build your systems, you have to manage everything. And one of the things that you really had to manage was your server, right? So you have to build your own server, you have to manage your server, you have to make sure that your server is secure. You don't want any hackers to come to your server. You have to make sure that your server can communicate. You have to make sure that that your server is always running and it can take all the load. So maybe one day, maybe one day you have 5 customers, maybe one day you have 500 customers coming to your website. Can your server take the load of those 500 customers, right? That was how people used to build software before. They used to, and some companies still build software like that. But now people are building on the cloud. What does that mean? So there are companies like AWS. There are companies like Google Cloud, provider. There's companies like Microsoft Azure. These are the big names in the cloud industry. You maybe have heard of them, right? You've probably heard of AWS. You've probably heard of Amazon, right? And what a cloud architect does is that what we want to build in the cloud, because a lot of these responsibilities that we had before, like maintaining security, maintaining networking, maintaining load, a lot of this is given to the cloud vendor. So let's say I'm using AWS. So when I use AWS, depending on the services I will use, I will say, okay, I want to use these services. Now, security or load is the responsibility for AWS. I don't need to think about it anymore. Okay, I will just pay AWS for their servers and for their cloud systems, right? Like their compute systems in the cloud. And I don't need to think about a lot of these problems anymore. I can just focus on my business. I can just, um, what a cloud architect does is that there's so many different services in the cloud, right? So like, for example, your database system, your compute system, your networking system, your VPN system, right? Your security systems. What a cloud architect does is that he looks at all of these services and he says that, okay, we need to use this service. We need to use this type of compute service here. We need to use this database here. We need to use this, this VPN for this reason. Okay, and so what he does, he designs what that system will look like in the cloud, right? So that is what a cloud architect is. What a DevOps engineer is that traditionally a DevOps engineer sets up that environment in which we can deploy code and ensure the stability of our system. So for example, a DevOps engineer may set up your CI/CD pipelines. So when a developer writes his code and he pushes code to production, that, the entire step of testing and building and finally being pushed to production, the DevOps engineer will build that infrastructure. It's a pipeline type of thing, CI/CD pipeline. A DevOps engineer may also orchestrate your monitoring tools, right? So how do you monitor your system, whether it's in the cloud or it's in the it's on-prem. So there's cloud systems which cloud architects build or design, and then there's on-prem, which was traditional software, right? So a DevOps engineer can be working for on-prem systems, or he can also be working for cloud systems, right? But at the end of the day, he's doing this. His goal is to make sure that the company or the software development practice in that company is going faster and is more stable. But the cloud architect is of course working for only cloud systems, where he's designing how that system will look like when in the cloud, right? So for example, let's look at a company that may be using AWS. So in AWS, there are a lot of compute services. There's containers and there's serverless. I don't know. Have you heard of serverless before? Sorry, have you heard of the term serverless?
I have seen that on your profile.
You've seen that, yes. So I'm a huge advocate for serverless. Okay, so these serverless is basically a computing paradigm, let's say. So before serverless was there, what people used to do was when they went to the cloud, they were building on containers. A container is basically a compute resource. Okay, let's say it's a block of code. It's a block of computing power. And let's say I buy this block of computing power. Okay, I have a website and I want to run my website, right? So I need a computing power, right? I need a computing power which my website will run on. So I buy a computing block. Okay, in my computing block, I then have to make sure that computing block. So this computing block, traditionally, or like most popular one, like popularly, was your EC2 instances. So in AWS, there's a service called EC2, right? And a lot of companies actually use EC2 instances, and these are containers basically. So a container is a block of computing power that you purchase from AWS or any other cloud vendor, and you basically then use it to run your software. But the disadvantage of containers was that you still have to think about some security. You still have to think about scaling, and you still have to think about, basically setting up that EC2 instance, that compute power, right? So I bought this, but I have to, do the settings to make sure that it is running for my customers, and for my business. Okay, so it used to take a lot of time, and but serverless gets rid of all those problems. So serverless has three main benefits, and these three main benefits are the pay-as-you-go model, the auto scalability, and the fully managed characteristic, right? So what does this mean? So how does this compare to containers? So serverless, or like and there are many serverless services in AWS. Their most popular serverless service is called AWS Lambda. So let's compare AWS Lambda to Amazon EC2 instances. Okay, two same things, two compute powers from the same cloud vendor, AWS. So AWS is selling Amazon EC2, and it is also selling AWS Lambda. Okay, so it's AWS is when you build your system on AWS, you can use EC2 instances and you can use Lambda functions. So which one should you use? So the reason why I like to say that people should use Lambda functions is because Lambda functions are one of the first characteristics is that pay as you go model. What does that mean? So let's say, Sai, that you have a server. Okay, you bought a server. Okay, now you are paying for that server, isn't it? You're paying maybe $5 per hour for the, or $50 or $1 for that server. Okay, you bought, but you don't have any customers, but you still have to pay for that server, isn't it? Then one day, your website becomes viral. Then 500 people, 10,000 people are now coming to your website, but that
Correct.
server can only take maybe 500 traffic. It can only take 500 people load. So now you need a new server. Okay, and you have to set up a new server very quickly because so many people are coming. There's too much
Yes.
load. You have to quickly set up that server.
Yes.
Okay. Um, with AWS Lambda, that happens automatically. Okay, so if 5 people are using your website, then the server that AWS Lambda will give you will be very good for 5 people. But one day, in 1 hour, if 500 people will come to your service, your website, then that AWS Lambda will automatically scale, right?
Yeah.
Imagine it will automatically become bigger to support 500 people coming to your website. Another thing is that, as I said, the pay as you go model. So if nobody's using your website, then nobody's coming to your server, right? If nobody's using your server, if you have AWS Lambda, then you don't have to pay. You
Okay.
only pay for the use of it. Okay,
Okay.
so
Okay.
Sai, one thing in software or in the tech industry that there is no silver bullet. There is no single service that is the best solution for everybody. What I always say is that depending on what your company needs to do, how many customers you're getting, how you are developing, depending on all of this, you should then decide whether you want to use containers, whether you want to use EC2 or Kubernetes, or whether you want to use serverless, or whether you want to use AWS Fargate, which is another serverless service, or whether you want to use AWS Lambda. So all of this, you can't, like for example, I'm saying, oh, I really like serverless, but that doesn't mean that serverless is the answer for all the software companies. No, I'm not saying that. It really does depend on your use case. It depends on the company's objective, the company's goals, what the company wants to do, right? So I always tell people that before you decide which AWS service you want to use, make sure you understand your business needs, your engineering needs, right? And then choose the right option that is available for you. Otherwise, like for example, in the companies that I worked in, we experimented with Lambda functions back in 2017. That time, Lambda functions were very, it was very young as a concept. It wasn't mature enough. Now it's a bit more mature, but that time there was still a lot of problems. For example, a Lambda function can only run for 5 minutes. So any operation that the customer does needs to be done within 5 minutes. Sometimes you pay your credit card bill and stuff like that. So there's that loading screen. If that loading screen happens, imagine if that loading screen happens for more than 5 minutes, if you were using a Lambda function for that, it would have timed out. It would have given you an error. So that time, if we were using Lambda functions, every operation needed to be done within 5 minutes because that was the constraint, that was the limitation of AWS Lambda. Now it's 15 minutes, and in the future it will become even more. Also, another limitation is that, yes, as I told you, right, in AWS Lambda, you only pay for the amount of resources that you use, right? So as I said, if only 5 customers are coming, you only pay for 5 customers. If 500 people are coming, you pay for 500, right? But what happens is that if more and more customers are coming to use your AWS Lambda function, then your bill will rise. The cost of your compute service will rise. And if it can potentially rise and become more expensive than EC2 container instances. So for example, if you have a lot of traffic on your website, and if you don't want to spend that much money, maybe you can use container services instead of serverless services. So that is this is what serverless is, and this is how serverless fits into the world of cloud computing. As I said, there are many options out there, and the cloud computing world is very complex. And the reason why it is complex is because there's so many use cases. Not one company is not the same as another company. Every company has its own culture, its own practices, its own development tools, its own objectives, its own business requirements, its own engineering needs. So to cover all of these, requirements, cloud vendors such as AWS and Azure and Google Cloud and even Alibaba Cloud, offer a wide range of options for you to choose from. And that is why I said, to know what option is perfect for you, to know what option is the right option for you, you really need to know what your business requirements are, what your engineering requirements are, and your technical requirements are. Right. So this is the thing. I'm curious, like, have you tried cloud computing? Have you tried software development? Have you looked into these things? Have you looked into AWS and stuff like that?
Yeah, I have joined. I'm a cloud architect training now. I started studying the services one by one. EC2, I just started, and from you, I came
Okay.
to know about Lambda. So
Right.
there are few more services that I'm going to study in coming days. And
Right.
do you have knowledge about all of the other services which are there? Because there are a lot of services like 175.
Yes. Yes. You're right. There are a lot of services. Sai, I can tell you honestly, don't feel intimidated by it. Don't get scared. Don't try to think that you need to learn 175 services. Nobody is an expert on all the 175 services. Okay. Learn about the core services, so like EC2, Lambda, DynamoDB, right? And that is what I suggest you can look at. Okay,
Okay.
don't feel that you need to learn 175 services. Nobody knows that. Okay, nobody is an expert on 175 services that AWS has. Where are you learning? Are you doing a course? What are you doing for
I
this?
have joined in a company, and they are giving me training.
Okay. Uh, so I suggest that what you can do is so are you trying to get this certificate? Are you trying to get an AWS certificate?
Yeah, the company will be giving the certificate, and also they said that we can also do certification on AWS website. There are a lot of different
Yeah,
certifications like cloud practitioner, cloud architect, associate, and the cloud
yeah,
professional. So
yeah.
my certification is I'm preparing for as cloud uh,
Practitioner.
no, no, the architect associate level.
Cloud. This yeah. I think that's a great certificate. So I have a cloud practitioner certificate. It's the most basic certificate, and that's because for product management, that is enough for us to understand the technical requirements for the projects that we work on, right?
Okay,
As a product manager. So, but yes, I am also very interested in getting a cloud, the solutions architect, the
yeah,
cloud
solution
architect,
architect. Yeah.
yeah, the solutions architect associate certificate, and I'm very happy to see that you are also interested in that. And there are many courses online. There you can also I also write a lot about these services, and you can go to my website, or you can go to my blog, and you can also read about them from there. And you're always free to ask me any question. I again, I'm not an expert on everything, but I will try my best to answer the questions that you have, that you may have.
So you mentioned a few core services already.
Mm. Right. So I would say that some of the most popular services are EC2.
Okay.
Another popular service is, as I said, AWS Lambda. The DynamoDB is a database service that I highly recommend, that I highly urge that everybody who is interested in cloud should be aware of. And then I also recommend that people should know about uh, Route 53. So Route 53 is when you're making your web application in the cloud, it helps you to route traffic. API Gateway is another great service that I feel that that everybody should learn about. And of course, we can't forget about S3. Amazon S3 is one of the earliest services that AWS had released, and it's definitely one of the most used and helpful services that are out there for anybody developing in the cloud. So let's see. So like for your databases, learn about DynamoDB and S3. For your compute services, learn about EC2 and Lambda functions, and even maybe go into a bit of Kubernetes EKS. So the AWS Amazon EKS is because Kubernetes is a very popular concept now, is a very popular technology. So it would be very, very beneficial if you learn about EKS. And also for your networking, I would suggest learn about SQS and SNS, right? These are all about messaging and event, and again, of course, Event Bridge, which I believe is the best thing that came out of AWS after AWS Lambda. So that helps you build event-driven architectures. I would recommend you to learn about Route 53 and API Gateway. And if you're really interested in API development, then AppSync and Amplify are definitely two other services that you should consider.
So
Yeah.
what solution architect do?
So as I said, a solutions architect is basically your job is to understand, okay, that this is the company wants to, let's say, there's a company, there's a startup, right? And the startup wants to sell ice cream, for example, online. And so your job, if you're a solutions architect, would be to understand how do we, okay, if this is what the company wants to do, and this is what the business requirements are, this is how many customers we're expecting, then it's your job to design that system. So okay, you're going to say, okay, we need to have an AWS Lambda over here. This AWS Lambda will be sending you know, SQS topics, SQS events to an EC2 instance, and that will, and also there'll be an SNS topic, an SNS service that will listen to uh, certain events and send emails, promotional emails, let's say. Also, you will say, okay, we need an API gateway over here for customer traffic to come, or we need a edge, some form, cloud, uh, you know, uh, let's say cloud formation to set up our entire architecture. And we need route 53 to redirect traffic, and we need some edge computing maybe. So it's basically your job is to design what that system will look like, right? So you say that, okay, we need a Lambda function, we need some, a VPN, we need event bridge, we need DynamoDB. So you will choose. So you will choose whether you should use DynamoDB or Neptune, which is another database service. You will choose whether you should use EC2 instances or Lambda functions, right? So your job is basically to design what that software or what that software system will look like in the cloud.
So I'm going to create tell which service is is important for the project.
Yes, that's yes. And how you will use that service, right? How that service will get connected to another service.
Okay. And about the cost of the services?
Yes, so you can. So each service has its own cost and its own pricing plan. So, for
Okay.
example, you can say that, hey guys, let's use an AWS Fargate instance. But AWS Fargate is relatively a very expensive instance. So if your company doesn't have that much money, then maybe you shouldn't use AWS Fargate. Maybe you should use EC2 instances, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So so you need to understand that this is what the business wants to do,
Okay.
and according to these requirements of the business, this is what the system should look like.
Okay. So it's
Think of it
just a
like this.
plan.
Yes, you make the plan. You're an architect. It's like this, like let's say they want to build a bridge, right?
Okay.
So the architect, the civil architect, the civil engineer makes a plan that, okay, the pillar needs to be like this, the road needs to be, the pillar needs to be this thick, this wide, so that the bridge doesn't collapse. You need to have
Okay.
a rope over here. You need to have the road needs to be this big. This is how much concrete we need. That, the civil architect, does all of that planning, right? So just like that, as a solution architect, as a cloud solution architect, you will decide, oh, we need this compute service here. We need this database service over here. We need this networking service over here. You will be building that plan for your, for your employer, for your client, like that. That is what you'll be doing. So that is why it is important to learn some of the services, at least the most important services, and then you can always learn about the other services. You said 175 services or how many, I
Yeah.
don't know. AWS has so many services, right? For example, let's say, I'll give you another example. Let's say your company wants to do machine learning,
Yeah.
right? If they want to do machine learning, then maybe you can look at the machine learning services that AWS has. So like AWS machine learning, AWS, uh, so, Amazon SageMaker. These are some machine learning services that you have. Then you need to think about, okay, so these machine learning tools, services. How will you send data to it? Oh, maybe we should use SQS queues to send data to it from our DynamoDB. Maybe we should store our models in an S3 bucket. So you will plan how to design your system.
Is it
Yeah.
important for me to have the basic knowledge of all the services?
Yes, a basic knowledge of all the services, but not. But again, like for the core services, you should have some in-depth knowledge, right?
Okay.
And this
Okay.
is something that, Sai, I honestly believe that, look, the cloud technology is developing very fast, very, very fast. Something that you learn today will become outdated in the next year. So, you know, when you learn something, you always have to keep on learning about it, right? You always have to keep on following what the new developments are on that service. And so that is why I always recommend that, keep on following all the blogs that people are talking about that are writing, attend webinars, attend virtual conferences, read the announcements, follow the announcements of AWS. Like basically just be involved in the community. That way you will always be up to date about the latest technologies, and you will always be able to recommend the right tools at the right time for your business use cases. Yeah. So
So
don't feel that you need to learn all the technologies, all the services now. Just a basic understanding of this one is used for this. How? I'll learn that later. It's not, I don't need to learn now, but I know that it is used for this. But learn about, as I said, learn about the core concepts, the core services, like your core database services, your core compute services, your core networking services. Learn about them. But the
okay,
other services, you can just know what they do. Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
So other than this, what do you do other than tech?
Other than tech, that's a very great question. Other than tech, actually, a lot of my world is just tech. Other than that, I hang out with my friends. So I basically went to university in Turkey. And after I graduated from university in Turkey, it was at this university called Bilkent University in Ankara, Turkey. Have you heard about Turkey? You know Turkey?
Yeah, I know Turkey. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was there, and I got a job in Ankara, and a lot of my university friends are still there. We've all graduated. A lot of them are doing other jobs. One of them is a designer. One of them is uh, you know, uh, a journalist. And we all, we hang out evening time. We go out for coffee, dinner. You know, so that is how. Recently, I've been, going for hiking and camping, so I mean, I'm not a very big outdoor person. I love the outdoors, but I just never find time. But now recently I've, been doing that with my friends. So that's fun. Yeah. It's, Sai, that after this because of COVID and because of the pandemic, a lot of people had to work from home, right?
Yeah.
So what happened was that when people who work from home, what they see is that, like, for example, I used to go to the office before. When I used to come back from the office, I used to have free time for myself, you know, But now, when you work from home, what happens is that your working hours and your personal time overlap.
Yeah.
So, it's a very big problem for anybody who's working from home, right? So these days, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out, how to divide my time very well. So yeah, so that's what I do. Actually, a lot of my interests and passions are, still intact. So after, as I said, uh, in my work, I'm a product manager, trying to think of the new DevOps enabling features for Atlassian Opsgenie. But in my free time, what I love to do is I love to write about AWS. I love
Okay.
to try to educate people or advocate for new AWS technologies. I love, and I also try to think of new product management practices that can help product managers like me around the world better improve their practices. And I do this, from the experiences that I have. Like, for example, like recently I was in one of the projects that I was working with. There was a small conflict between the engineer and the designer. The graphic designer, the UI designer and the engineer, they had a small conflict. As a product manager, what should I do to resolve this conflict? So I learned what I had to do, and then I'm thinking of now writing a blog about it so that other product managers and other people interested in product management can learn from my experience and hopefully, apply this to their work. So that's what I like to do in my free time. I know I am a very tech-based guy, let's say, a very tech-oriented guy. Yeah. What about you, Sai? What do you like? I see that you do a lot of videos. Apart from this, what else do you do? Apart from, learning great things about AWS and cloud computing, what do you do in your free time?
I do videos. I do
Uh-huh.
videos all the time. Other
Okay.
than AWS, and I have blogs. Like
Yeah.
I have a tech blog and I have a non-tech blog where I write
Okay.
something whatever comes in my mind at that particular time.
Yeah.
And
What do you
I
write about in the non-tech part? I'm very interested in, so I was a so like I used to like to write a lot, and I used to like to write short stories. But because after I started working and because I didn't find much time, I kind of drifted away from writing short stories or, personal blogs to more tech blogs. And tech blogs are very informative. You're always
Yeah.
trying to tell people about what you learned, so they don't have that that drama, the
Yeah.
comedy that you can put in your personal writing, right? So I'm very interested. What do you write about in your non-tech blogs?
I write about human psychology. I
Ah,
write
human
about
psychology.
emotions, human emotions, feelings, and
Okay.
the communication skills, and why people are not thinking in the similar way, like thinking
Okay.
difference, way of thinking. The topics names will be like this.
Ah, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. I hope that you can try to apply this in a in your tech field eventually.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Like
Because of me being tech, that became very easy for me.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, maybe you can try to find use cases for human psychology in tech. Maybe you can go into artificial intelligence and replicate human psychology in computers.
Yeah,
That's really
yeah.
very interesting.
I
Yeah.
did a video with a person who is a psychologist, and
Mm.
that the title of that video was like uh, uh, I forgot the title. It was like
Whatever.
artificial intelligence versus human intelligence.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. I have a friend who started his company recently. It's called 1001 Epochs. And what he does is that he uses artificial intelligence to create art. Okay, and it's very interesting. Uh, like because everybody uses artificial intelligence to make self-driving cars or make robots that clean your house or make but using artificial intelligence to create art that adheres to human psychology and human aesthetics. That is a very interesting field that is coming up, and my friend is doing that, and it's amazing. I think I would recommend you check him out. He's from Lebanon. I can send you his details. Maybe you can interview him also. But he's doing something very interesting, and maybe it will interest you. Because he's combining human psychology of art, right? And AI. So using AI to generate art.
Wow,
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll send you over his details, and maybe you can get in touch with him, and you can learn from him also. Yeah.
definitely, definitely, man.
Yeah.
So at last, do you have anything to say to the world, the tech world?
The tech world. Well, all I can say is that there's nothing that's going to like technology has been developing at a speed that can never be unhindered and that can never be hindered, right? It's our role, it's our job to make sure that we always use the new technology in a way that serves the betterment of humanity. Today the world is a very small place. Before, my parents, when they had to write letters to each other. Today you and I, thanks to the power of technology, are communicating with one another. So unfortunately, technology can also be used for destructive purposes. So I always say, like, there's always technology will always progress. It is up to us to make sure that we use that technology for the right use cases for the betterment of humanity as a whole, right? And I also want to say that please, everybody, like, the only reason why technology has developed this much is because of diverse thinking and open-mindedness. You know, Sai, that the reason why companies like Google or Amazon or Tesla are so successful is because they have engineers from all over the world working together, collaborating together. You have Indians and Pakistanis working together. You have Armenians and Turkish people working together. You have people who you would think are not friends working together to build great technology. That is because, when we come from a certain, like, if you come from a specific society, your society will think in a specific manner. But if you see a new person from another society come, then he will add a new idea, and then you will find a new way of thinking about the problem. And that is why tech is so it progresses very fast, because in the tech industry the tech industry is open to new ideas, and that's why I say that anybody who wants to be successful in tech should have a diverse and open mind.
Like you.
Hopefully, yeah. That's what I'm trying. Yeah,
Fantastic.
exactly. All right, Sai.
So
Then thank you so much, Sai, for again chatting with
yeah,
me about all of this.
so have you seen any videos of mine on YouTube?
Yes, I have seen. I saw that you were talking to a police officer from Canada. I saw that you were talking to various authors. I saw that you were talking to a Canadian author. I remember that one. And you were talking to two Irish missionaries, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, right. And that's why I really like, it's you. That's why I really wanted to talk to you, because I think that your mindset is very similar to mine. Like, talk to everybody, get ideas from everybody from around the world, and that is what successful. That is what success will be, right? Like, if you can learn from every corner of the world and apply it, then you will definitely be successful. That's what I think. Right?
So
So
I came to know that there is another person and who is living in another part of the world, things like me, with
yeah,
this
yeah.
video.
I think, yeah. By the way, Sai, a lot of people think like you, and you're not alone. But you are unique because you are the person who you think like this, and a lot of people think like this. But you are the only person who decided to make videos about this. So again, I thank you for this great project that you have, this great videos that you make. It's very
Thank
good,
you.
and I subscribe to your channel now, and I'm looking forward to the new videos that you will put out.
Thanks for giving me opportunity to
Yeah,
talk with me and telling a lot of important things for a lot of people, a lot of tech people. For sure, they will understand what you said and they get some information from the words that you said.
hopefully, yeah. And there's
So
definitely
can
more. There are definitely more. More experts in the field. More experts that I'm learning. That I learn from. I'm not. There are people who have more experience than me, who are more expert, and I hope one day you will also get to talk to them.
I will put your blog links in the description of this video. People who find
Thank you,
the
sir.
video on YouTube, on anywhere on the social media, they will find your links and they will learn that you write every day.
Thank you. Thank you. That would be great. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Can I put this video and audio clip on my social media on internet on
Yes,
YouTube
please.
on
I would love that. I would love to be part
podcast?
of your. Yes, I would love to be part of your community.
Thank you very much. Keep going and keep going, Yusuf. Keep doing what you love and keep inspiring people like this.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much. And again, if you have any more questions, if you just want to chat about anything personally or about cloud computing, please feel free to reach out to me anytime. Okay.
Yeah, I will definitely. Yeah,
All right. Thank you then. All right then.
bye.
You have a great day. Bye bye.
Yeah, you too, man.